Good morning, entrepreneurs. This is the Non-Corporate Network. Happy Friday. You are tuned in to Entreprenews, a show where we debate the top 6 trending small business headlines for 3 minutes each. I'm joined by my compadre, Dustin Trout.
I didn't know if you were waiting for me to say it.
It was kind of, we're going with it. We're rolling with it.
Yeah.
Well, we are excited to be here with you. Thanks for tuning in, whether you're listening to us on the pod or you're tuned in live. We appreciate you being here. Anything you want to mention before we get started there, Dustin?
Yeah, no, Entreprenews. I mean, a little bit about it. We take 6 of the top headlines in the business world, give our perspective. Usually mine's a bit better, more times than not. And so I go home with the belt and then we go on with our day. Keep grinding away and trying to, do the entrepreneurial thing, move mountains. And
that first part sounded so convincing. It's like you've been practicing it in the mirror before you come in here.
4 a.m., man. Every morning I've been waking up, practicing that for an hour.
You got that playing in your on your radio on the way here.
Absolutely. Well, you ready to just dive in?
Let's go for it.
Cool. So with our first story, a little bit on the education side. So employees are using YouTube more than anything to learn new tech skills during the pandemic. A lot of employees are taking the pandemic some extra time to brush up on their tech skills and learning project management tools, Zapier, automations, just everything that's in the tech world. And really, there was 1,000 people that were surveyed, and from that, 59% are using YouTube as their go-to spot to learn these different tools and applications. Hands-on learning comes in second at 43%, with 40% of people learning using online courses. Of the people surveyed, 54% said that their employer is actively investing into their education and learning, which is a bit surprising to me. I would think that, it'd be a bit more, knowing that as this happens, I mean, it's going to be a win-win for employees and employers, making a more efficient workplace. With all that said, I mean, more people going to YouTube for education. What do you think that does to the higher education world? And are we just at the tip of the iceberg when it comes to technology now that mass adoption is starting to happen from the pandemic?
Well, I mean, I'm surprised that it's not higher, to be honest. And it might be depending on the circle that you're surveying. But I mean, this definitely is something to be considered, especially as it relates to higher education. I mean, a lot of what is on YouTube, a lot of what people are learning are very specific skill sets, very specific competencies as it relates to software, technology, things that are coming into the fold today. And, to be honest, just the higher education system is not able to adapt that quickly. Everything they do in terms of curriculum is long and drawn out. And so it takes a long time for these universities to innovate. And so I think that, coming out of high school, if you watch 1,000 hours of YouTube or sit in 1,000 hours of lectures, I'm going to take the guy that's watched 1,000 hours of YouTube as long as it's, relevant information. Maybe I curate the YouTube. That's a big downfall about YouTube right now, is that there's just so much out there that, you want to be able to curate a little bit higher concentration of the things that matter most. But I think this is definitely something to be taken seriously. And, every employer should be investing in education for their employees, because what is working today, we know, especially in marketing, is not going to be working in another 6 to 8 weeks in some situations. So.
Yeah. No, investing in education from an employer perspective is always going to be ROI positive. It surprised me that more don't do it. But I mean, to your point, when I was working at ASU, we had a whole campaign that was around, in the education system, it was for the Teachers College, around trying to innovate and change the education system as we see it, because it hasn't changed since 1910. And, it's still in brick and mortar and in walls and all that. And there hasn't been any innovation. So I think, there is something to be worried about there if you're in the higher education system, but it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
When oftentimes YouTube is kind of hands-on learning, if you think about it. I mean, compared to, you don't read how to do a push-up. So
exactly. No, I love that. So going on to our next story. So Twitter expands misinformation rules ahead of the US election. With the mail-in ballots that are happening, there's a lot of controversy around it, a lot of misinformation that can be spread. With us doing this election, it's going to prolong the counting, the tallying, and so it's going to take a bit longer to get the results and figure out who the next president might be or who it might remain, whatever that may be. And so Twitter is doing everything they can to either label or remove anything that's misinformation around the counting of it, the decision of it, the laws regarding it, basically anything that could sway someone's decision or just negatively impact the overall look of the U.S. election. You know, a lot of other companies are jumping in. I mean, we got a story here in a minute about Google, but you know, Twitter remains or keeps just innovating in this arena, updating their policy quite frequently. Are they leading the charge for social media platforms, or are they doing too much in terms of regulation?
I think this is virtue signaling to get some positive press. They're always going to be the people that did it before Facebook is what they're looking at. And they see that there's people that are up in arms about hate speech. And so they want to be able to label themselves as the first to do something. And, you know, that's fine. They need to stay relevant somehow. But honestly, I mean, I am all for removing misinformation and hate speech, but I'm not for censoring the general public and removing. I mean, we're seeing the same thing out of YouTube. They're removing far and wide significantly 100x more than they were removing last year, because they're just kind of taking it in such a way where it's like, we'll just censor as much as we need to. And then if there's something that didn't need to be censored, that person will reach out and eventually we can put that back up on the platform. And I think that when you start to take that conservative of an approach, it starts to put you on the offensive, as now you're sitting on the other side. There's still a problem that's wrong here. I mean, Facebook has taken it in their way. They have 92% of like hate speech is actually AI. It's already found based on the like the patterns of words that are being used. Twitter is at like 35%. So they're doing something like this. That just tells me that they don't have robust enough technology. And this is pretty much just altering the First Amendment. Now, the First Amendment only protects me from talking to somebody to say what I want to say. I can't digitally say what I want to say. It's absolutely bogus.
Bogus. Bill and Ted. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the differentiation between everything is between organic and paid. It's, you know, if you're posting something, it's similar to saying it out on the street. You should be able to say it. It's whenever you start pushing or amplifying it with paid media or budget to really get in front of a particular audience, that is when I think it should be really looked at. But I think to your point, it's like they're just removing way too much stuff, and people have to go out and, hey, can you get this approved? Can you get this up? And from an organic perspective, let people say what they want. It's whenever you start paying to amplify that message is whenever I think. Well,
if you have a big audience and it's going to be amplified, then maybe put those people in a different bucket of how you're looking at the censorship of what's being said, because this is too conservative to the point where it now infringes on our First Amendment rights. And I think that is absolutely wrong.
Yep. No, I hear you. So going on to our next story here in Arizona. So Crystal Lagoons, it's an island resort. It's bringing 1,800 jobs to Glendale. So essentially, it chose Glendale for their attraction because of, you know, all around hot or heat here in Arizona. It'll bring in revenue, you know, year round. But really, Crystal Lagoons is the leader in water innovation and technology. I mean, it's a huge 10-acre resort style location where whenever you go into the gates, you got sand. It makes you feel like you're at the beach. So now we have become better than San Diego. We're going to become better than San Diego, but you know, conveniently, this is going to be done 2022, 1 year ahead of the 2023 Super Bowl, which will be held in Glendale. So, I mean, what are your thoughts? 1,800 jobs. That's quite a bit. Is Glendale the best spot for it, or what are your overall thoughts on just?
I mean, I'm all for Arizona getting a beach, baby. But, you know, I think that the 1,800 jobs, is that construction? Is that post-construction? And that's their staff? Like, what does all that look like? I think the other thing, too, is like, this is the last business model that they'll let go active with COVID. I know we're 2022 launching it. So, I mean, I think that it'll be interesting to see what the fallout of COVID is and what, you know, what's next as we move into it. But I think, you know, Glendale is as good a spot as any in Arizona, especially with the build out of University of Phoenix Stadium and the area surrounding it. So, I mean, I think it's a strategic move. I think we're going to see a lot of people moving to that area, not only from other parts of the valley, but really from the West Coast and some more populated cities. And so, just more writing on the wall that Arizona is going to continue to grow.
Yeah, no, I love seeing the jobs, but I mean, to your point, it's they don't really specify what types of jobs these are. It'd be interesting to see 1,800 employees at one single
is that sustainable?
resort.
Yeah.
And again, is this 1,800 jobs through the Super Bowl? Because I mean, that's going to bring a huge influx of people. But after that, are you going to have to lay off or operate at 50%? So reality, you're only bringing 900 jobs. I mean, either way, new jobs is always good. But I mean, in terms of location, you got Gilbert and Chandler that's, growing a bit more when it comes to families. And so, do you think Glendale, is that more of a short-term decision?
Give me a few more beaches, Dustin. Give me 4 or 5 beaches out here in AZ, man. That's what it's going to take for us to be considered part of the West Coast tribe, then so be it.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think is going to do for the area next to the stadium? I mean, it's definitely growing. You got a new casino out there.
It's growing. Yeah, I mean, we've seen it in a lot of other big market cities where they kind of build up around the main attraction. And I think, with the moves that Arizona Cardinals are making, I mean, it's all trending towards Phoenix being kind of considered nationally recognized city. I think it always kind of goes by the wayside and people are like, wait, it's the 5th largest city? What?
Yep.
So I think, hopefully these are the kind of things that it takes for us to, be able to step up. I'll tell you who's stepping up right now is State 48. We are powered by State 48, and they are an amazing company, especially when it comes to creating really, really eye-catching apparel. And, I love the clothing. I think the shirt that I was wearing the other day, the State 48 shirt, like that's probably the most comfortable shirt that I own, Dustin.
Yeah, and that's what they pride themselves on, is the comfort of their shirts. It's clothing for all, inspired by Arizona. They're, I mean, like I mentioned all the time, I mean, they're huge on community, which we're huge on. It's they're giving back and figuring out how to create some jobs as well. And so it's there's an awesome organization. So check them out, state48.com.
This is another good shirt too, right here. My Atlanta Braves.
If you're good with second place,
taking the ship this year, baby.
Ain't first or last.
Getting into our next story here. 1 second. And hot new job title in the pandemic, head of remote work. Another sign that work from home is here to stay. Companies are hiring executives to lead the virtual work experience. We quote from the CEO of Quora, you need somebody with an HR background, but they also need to be a strong communicator and be adept to the newest technology. The pandemic has forced us to flip a switch that is now suddenly a role that companies need. And so, Dustin, what are your thoughts? Do you think that there's a certain amount of employees that a business has to have where this becomes something that they need? And what do you think of how the HR world is trending into, and the project management world are trending into remote work?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're going to need 5 employees or more, something around there. I mean, when you have multiple lines of communication coming in, but I mean, whether you want to call it head of remote work, I mean, what it boils down to is internal communication and process. I mean, this is more of an operations thing than anything. I mean, there's been a lot of help. I mean, we're going through it now. It's how are we using the project management tool? How do we signal when you're ready and this is ready? I mean, it's creating that process to create internal communication between different departments, which it's tough whenever you're in the same building, let alone everyone's working remote. So whatever we want to call it, either way, I think it is needed, especially as more people are going to be working remote. More businesses are going to allow it. And so you're going to have a certain amount of people, obviously not as many people as right now that are working remote, but it's definitely needed. I mean, there's so many different tools, and it's, do we communicate? When do we communicate in Slack? When do we communicate in our project management tool? How do we approve things? And who's up to get their stuff done? But
you bring up some good points, right? Like the process itself is going to be what the function of that job role is. So it's like we're already seeing the phasing out of a job role like this with technology that helps assist in operations and process. But I mean, I think the other side of this too is that we're not necessarily creating jobs with this role as much as we're shifting competencies of one person into another role within the company. We're seeing now that there's a lot of HR software like Gusto that's out there that pretty much automates the entire HR process and makes it super easy for the employees. And so what do you do with those heads of HR and people that are in operations? Well, there's ways to shift them into roles like this, where it's a little more focused on remote productivity. But, Dustin, I think that what's going to happen here is over the next few years, business is going to innovate again, and we're going to shift again. And then we're going to be on the next loop of innovation, and we will have automated the remote work process, and it'll be on to the next. So
see, this is a great example of the new technology and all that. It's not, creating loss of jobs. What it did is shift jobs. So we still have the same amount of people, but now the HR apps and all that have taken those jobs. Now you have companies that are employing people. So now you have employees over here, and then these people have shifted. So overall, using technology, you're just changing the workforce overall, creating more jobs, not removing jobs.
I'm conservative about this, because I think that when you remove all the orchestra members and you just have the one person that's playing the symphony and all the bots are playing the instruments, naturally there's going to be less people that you need to do the same amount of output. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. There's obviously a lot of people that are unemployed. And so, only time will tell, as Dustin says.
Always love your analogies.
Only time will tell. Moving into our next story, as Dustin mentioned earlier, Google promises to remove search suggestions that might seem political, even if they are true. According to Google, election-related predictions, we do not allow predictions that could be interpreted as a position for or against any candidate or political party, nor which could be interpreted as claims about the participation in or integrity of the electoral process. That sounds about like one of the answers they gave at the antitrust hearing, which if you didn't see, I'll just say was a lot of smoke and mirrors and no questions actually being answered, but a lot of scary questions being asked, Dustin, from congressmen about, especially as it relates to the election process and Google's involvement in what they're doing. And so they're claiming that they're not going to be suggesting anything that would influence your decision when typing in a candidate's name or policy. And, I just look at this and go, Google, you can't claim to be a third-party moderator here when you curate the results, and you curate the results on YouTube, and you curate the deliverability of the Republican Democrats, email delivery and Gmail, the most used email provider. So, what are your thoughts here? Can they be a third party to their own curation? And do you believe anything that they're saying in this story?
I mean, it's what they're saying in the story.
Question. Sorry.
Yeah. What they're saying in the story, I mean, is very similar to whenever you reach out on their customer support, just canned responses, and you get nowhere.
That's the most robotic thing I've ever read. I could barely even read it.
It's exactly. But I think, the more and more these are coming up, and then we're talking about these, who's supposed to regulate and all this, it's tough, because if you have the government regulate, now you have more, taxes that need to come in to pay for that. But you don't want the actual company to regulate, because they can, push it whatever way they want. So I think there needs to be something where, similar to the 2008 audits on banks, on the checks and balances, is here's a list of KPIs or numbers that we're going to be looking at. You need to be over this threshold, otherwise you're going to get fined. I mean, something like that, to where it's allow the company to regulate their own, but we're going to check once a quarter, once a year, whatever that may be. And here's a checklist, and all these boxes needs to be checked. And if not, here's a huge fine. And so, I mean, it's tough. It's because if you, like I said, if you have the government roll it out, now taxpayers have to foot the bill, and I don't want to, have to pay for that. Let the company do what they want. Let's just make sure that,
Shoot, I'll pay for a third party to come in there and be a watchdog for Google. I mean, I look at this and go, since when was saying that you're not going to present results considered not censoring something? Like, you're still influencing people by it's like when somebody says, hey, do you want to go eat? And you said, oh, I already ate. It's like, well, you're talking about, well, I ate breakfast, but it's like, I'm not lying. I'm just not telling the full story. It's like, that's what we're getting out of Google here. And it's like, you're censoring it, but then also pushing a headline that's like, we're not censoring anything now. It's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too, Google. And I'm just real tired of all of the canned answers that I keep hearing, and the virtue signaling that you guys are putting out. So
fired up this Friday morning. Love it, Chaz.
I'm upset, man. Well, getting into a little bit of a lighter hearted story here. On Wednesday evening, ASU released its COVID testing numbers. Cases have gone down significantly. And they're rolling out a lot of interesting policies, kind of trailblazing the higher education world with what they're doing. I mean, we talked about how U of A is analyzing the wastewater in the dorms. ASU has got resources for students to be able to go and get tested easily, as well as, some pretty robust tracking of where students are going and where they have access to, so that they know that they're controlling the spread. So, Dustin, what are your thoughts on how ASU is handling this? And what are your thoughts on just college education as, it's pretty much a giant business. The students are, the equivalent to employees. So how do you think they're handling this compared to businesses? And, what's the best way forward from here? Do you think that we're out of the woods yet?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of handling it, they're coming down hard. I mean, I know we're shooting some video for a client on ASU campus, and I mean, we're all too close and all that. So I mean, they're quick to make sure social distancing is there and all that. I know that in the story it mentioned they got some flack for how they're presenting the data. I think more so there's a conversation around that. I think there's a lot of apples to oranges comparisons on the data in terms of cases, deaths, death rate, all that type of stuff. Yep. Which I think that's what they're updating, is just presenting the data differently. But I mean, I know you also mentioned that I think they have, kicked some people out of dorms and stuff like that. I mean, I also wonder how many businesses are starting to hide under that COVID umbrella, being able to just treat people how they want because of COVID. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's tough. And you talk about like the NFL players, for instance, they have consequences. Like you're not going to get paid your $1 million this year if you don't comply. If you have to stay in, don't go to a restaurant, or you're going to, be fined significantly. And so, the blowback for students is, hey, you're going to get expelled. You're going to get kicked out. You're going to have a lot of bad things happen to you. And so I think that there's not really that kind of incentive in other ways. And I don't know if it's a constitutional incentive for the general public, but having consequences is obviously showing that people will fall in line. And, it's just like we're towing the line of China here, Dustin. I think, it works. Like we're seeing that it works to do the China side, but like, it's like we don't want to infringe on our freedoms, but
I mean, you talk about the platforms. I mean, not allowing things to be pushed. You got, we've had that story here. DC allowing some businesses to open, some not. I mean, it's turning into the government has I guess they've always had the ultimate say, but they're actually enforcing it. Yeah. And I mean, it's a lot of similarities to the government owning your actions and who can do what, and then moving away from what America started on.
Feeling very martial law-esque out here, but nonetheless, we rally together as entrepreneurs. We continue to innovate and find better ways. So we appreciate you guys that are out there listening. And, I'm thinking back on the stories here. I think there's something to be said between the Twitter and the YouTube, or Twitter and the Google story about censoring, over censoring just to protect your butt. I think is something that is a risk, just like not censoring enough. So you see companies like Facebook maybe not censoring enough. Companies like Google and Twitter now maybe over censoring a little bit. We need to find a balance, and so I hope that we can do that.
Yep. No, my favorite was, Crystal Lagoons. Bring on the 1,800 jobs, and more so, bring on that beach, baby. I'm ready for, Four Peaks Kill Lifter. Put the toes in the sand.
That's and, a pretty dark beer for outside in the middle of summer, Dustin. Gotta. I respect it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in again. Whether you're listening to us on the podcast at Entreprenews, anywhere you can find your podcast, or watching us on Facebook, YouTube, we do appreciate you guys a whole lot. And if you have a message you want to bring to the world, whether you want to do it through Entreprenews or do it through our platform here at NCN, reach out to us, ncnbroadcast.com. You can also find us on any social media you can think of under the sun, non-corp network. And other than that, we just, we appreciate you guys being here, and have a great rest of your weekend and get after it the rest of the day. Dustin, you have anything you want to mention to these people before we let them go?
No, I just appreciate you tuning in, but I did want to say, remember 9/11? Crazy that it's been 19 years. So just want to throw that out there. It's definitely a time-changing day, but nonetheless, get out there, hustle, move mountains, and go shake up the world.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Thoughts and prayers going out to everybody that was affected, and Let's keep moving, America.
Let's keep moving.
Peace.
Peace.